Hey folks, this is Rhykker, and the Diablo 4 team has released a whole bunch of videos this week, including one giving us a sneak peek at some information about a new enemy faction in the upcoming expansion, Vessel of Hatred. We'll also talk about some insights we learned about the future of the game from a recent interview, and then we'll talk about how Pokémon is finally suing Palworld, and how recent Final Fantasy releases have been a disappointment to Square Enix. Now, in case you folks haven't been keeping up with Diablo 4, you can find all my info videos consolidated on my website, Rhykker.com, which brings us to a word from this video's sponsor, Squarespace. I built my website using Squarespace, and I was able to do everything myself, quickly and easily, and with zero education in the field. All thanks to how easy Squarespace is to work with. Squarespace even has a new AI tool called Squarespace Blueprint to make setting up a website easier than ever, uniquely tailored to your brand or business, and optimized for viewing on every device. It even has optimized SEO tools so that you can launch your website and start getting views as quickly as possible. Squarespace is flexible for any kind of website with tons of design options to pick from. You can easily connect all your social accounts and also upload your video content and organize your video library. You can sell products or services and offer flexible payment options, including buy now and pay later plans with Afterpay and ClearPay. Basically, if you want to build a website, I recommend Squarespace. So head to squarespace.com/Rhykker or click the link in the description to start your free trial and use code Rhykker to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com/RHYKKER and use code Rhykker. But let's dive into the Diablo 4 news. Again, the team released a series of videos over the past week. The first was Diablo 4, the story so far. And it's a reminder of what happened in the campaign, for those of us who didn't play in a while, or, just didn't pay attention, or otherwise it's a good jumping in point for people planning to skip straight to the Vessel of Hatred story. The video is narrated by Lorath. Love his voice actor. Great to see they're keeping him around. He is a busy Hollywood actor after all, Ralph Ineson. Anyway, the super short version of what happened is that the old drunk Haradrim Lorath teamed up with the old washed-up Haradrim Donan and the young Haradrim Weebu Narelle to take down Lilith. With our player too, of course. Lilith wanted to go to Hell to devour her father Mephisto, who was being reborn in Hell. They claim that if Lilith had succeeded, we'd all be damned. Citation needed. Narelle imprisoned Mephisto in a soul stone while we defeated Lilith, and Lilith's dying words to us were that a dire future lies ahead of us without her aid. Whoops. Nice job breaking it, hero. The campaign story ends with Narelle heading off on her own to take care of Mephisto for good. In the second video, Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred The Next Chapter, the team gives us an overview of what the story of Vessel of Hatred will entail, or at least the initial setup. Slight spoilers ahead. I'll pause now, give you a chance to skip this part of the video, follow the timestamps below. I'm serious, pause now. Alright, so Narelle was sailing south with Mephisto's Soulstone, looking for a way to banish Mephisto to the Abyss. That's that nasty place that's really hard to get out of. She had told us not to follow her, but hey, we were never really good at following instructions anyway. So we saddle up with our BFF Lorath and chase after Narelle. We follow a lead that she's been spotted in Nahantu, so that's why we show up there. Meanwhile, the Cathedral of Light is in total disarray after Lilith killed their messiah Anarius, which has led to a schism in the religion. A new sect has risen up called the Burned Knights. These are some bad hombres who battled in hell alongside Anarius. Thus the burned part, I imagine. And they've become very militant. They're led by a dude named Yorvar who believes his way is the right way. And so the Burned Knights are now on a manhunt for Lorath and Narelle to make them pay for their crimes. Or at least what they deem to be crimes. And Wowhead has actually data mined some of the Burnt Knight models, with this guy here being their leader. We also learned a bit more about Wolf Mephisto. This wolf form is known as the Herald of Hatred, and it is an astral projection of Mephisto from his hell womb. The more time Narelle spends with the Soul Stone, the closer she draws to Mephisto, the more influence he's able to exert over her. He may just end up convincing her to help him respawn rather than destroy him. So that's why we come in, because we want to, stop that. Narelle's plan is to purify the Soul Stone in the Vault of Light, which was created by Akarat, who's basically the founder of the main religion in Sanctuary. Akarat's tomb is also supposed to be in the Vault of Light, so you just know we're gonna have to fight some horrible undead Akarat at some point. Maybe Mephisto will even possess his corpse, who knows. Akarat was also the one who discovered the Spirit Realm. So if we go back to when the World Stone was created and Sanctuary came out of it, the Spirit Realm was also created, but angels and demons didn't know about the Spirit Realm. It's something that's been kept safe and sacred and secret all this time by humans. But now Mephisto's corruption threatens to enter it, and thus enter the Spiritborn, protectors of the Spirit Realm, and why they're getting involved in the story. Then the last video was Narelle's Lament, which was just a really great character piece focusing on Narelle so that we can understand what she's going through, her struggle with Mephisto's influence, her background. It's a really great video with a chilling moment in it, and some nice fan service too. Very subtle. We got like a name drop of Deckard Cain, a name drop of the Durants of Hate. Now, I know quite a few people dislike Narelle and think she's a moron for going off on her own to deal with the Soul Stone. I think we need to reserve judgment until whenever her story is going to be over. We don't know if she's being influenced by Mephisto or if she really has a brilliant plan. And you know, we've already seen what happens to that one dude who was on her canoe with her. He gets horribly killed, so maybe she just really wanted to spare us. In any case, what do you folks think her fate will be in Vessel of Hatred? Is she super dead? Or will she be the one Soulstone carrier who does not meet a totally horrible ending? Sign up in the comments with your theories. Now, outside of that, Video Games Chronicle recently published an interview with Diablo boss Rod Ferguson and D4 executive producer Gavian Wishaw, from which we got a couple new insights. First off, I think we got confirmation that we will have a Season 6 stream. I imagine that'll be announced anytime now, and it's probably going to take place, I'm guessing, either the 26th of September or the 3rd of October. Both are Thursdays, which tends to be their day that they do things. Now remember, unlike Seasons 4 or 5, Season 6 will have a theme, and we haven't yet learned what it is. Then they also reaffirmed that they're supporting Diablo 4 for years to come. They said that we had a long time between Diablo 3 and Diablo 4, and, quote, we didn't want to go back to that place. And so we're really focused on bringing things like Vessel of Hatred to our players. Diablo 3 released in 2012. Its expansion, Reaper of Souls, launched in 2014. And then the Necromancer pack released in 2017. And then we had D4 in 2023. So 6 years since the last release of any major D3 content. So what they're telling us here is, if and when the team moves to Diablo 5, we won't have a 6-year gap with no Diablo content. They also addressed how they want to avoid people feeling like, you know, if they miss a few seasons, then it's too late to get into things. There's like too much that they missed, too much to catch up on, which they technically can't catch up on. And this is actually one of the reasons why they generally try to avoid calling seasons by number and instead call them by name. Season of Blood, Season of the Construct, Season of Loot Reborn. It's so that people don't hear Season 6 and then think, oh, well, I didn't play Seasons 1 through 5, I'm missing context, I can't just jump in. They don't want people to feel like it's like a Netflix series or a long-running TV show. And they've reaffirmed that they're designing seasons in such a way that you can always jump into a new season without having had to play anything before. Then they mentioned that for Season 5, the game saw, quote, a ton of new players. That actually surprised me. I would have figured for Season 4, sure, but Season 5 as well. That's very interesting. They spoke about how they're always working on the leveling curve to try to ensure people are getting to experience the end game. One quote here is, and you can see very early on, we would check what's the maximum level average after 7 to 10 days, and it will be 52. That was high for us for Season 4. That was the highest we ever had it. It was like 52, now it's 60, with 60 being the new max level before you start getting Paragon points. As of Vessel of Hatred. And so we're seeing that, like a person coming in, even though they're coming in fresh, in under 2 weeks they can be level 60 and be in the end game and be enjoying the whole experience. So it doesn't take that long because of how we continue to tune the leveling process for new players. This should be a good indication of how fast leveling will be in Season 6 and into the future. The interviewer tried to press them for some kind of long-term content roadmap, and they said, quote, I don't see, Destiny sort of made the call that we're a 10-year game, and they were quick to change that, and it's hard to make that kind of prediction for Diablo. because it's really about where the players are and what they're looking for. And the thing that we really learned is the community and the industry change so much in that period of time. So basically, they don't want to commit to any number of expansions or any number of years of new content because, I mean, look at WoW. WoW has continued to do well after so many years, and so they'll continue to make WoW content and expansions until it no longer does well. So if Diablo 4 expansions sell really well, I imagine they'll keep making Diablo 4 expansions until that's no longer the case. Then in some Final Fantasy news, Final Fantasy 16 has released on PC, now available on Steam where it's getting mostly positive reviews. But we also learned that for Square Enix, both Final Fantasy 16 and Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth did not meet expectations. In a statement that was originally made back in May but only made public now, Square Enix president Takashi Kiryu said, quote, "In the HD Games subsegment, we released multiple new titles, including major titles such as Final Fantasy 16 and Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, but profits unfortunately did not meet our expectations." I feel like all I ever hear about from Square Enix is that their games do not meet their sales expectations, which seems to consistently be incredibly high expectations. Now, in this particular case, when he made the statement, Final Fantasy 16 had been out for about a year, whereas Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth had only been out for about 2 to 3 months. And Rebirth was considered the 5th best-selling game of the year as of May, and it has since dipped down to, I think, about 8th place now. But still, yeah, not good enough for them. Now, in fairness, it is true that these titles did not sell as well as some past entries in the Final Fantasy series. But if Square Enix is so concerned about their profits, then, I don't know, maybe stop releasing these as PS5 exclusives and doing delayed PC releases? I'm pretty sure this whole double dip model has proven to be unsuccessful for more games than it has been successful for. We can't all be Grand Theft Auto. In some Helldivers 2 news, the game has received probably its most popular patch ever, or at least its most crowd-pleasing one. In short, buffs for everyone and nerfs for enemies. This patch includes a major overhaul of armor penetration, anti-tank mechanics, health values, tons of buffs to weapons and stratagems, reworks to enemies, mostly nerfs to enemies. Overall, the game is easier now, and this feels like it ought to shake up the meta and allow for more stratagems and weapons to be viable, especially non-anti-armor loadouts. We were previously forced to basically always have a way to reliably break enemy armor. So you'd always have an Eat with you or a Quasar or something, and it just funneled us right into these very, very same couple of builds or ways to deal with armor. But now with the changes to armor and armor pen, now a lot more weapons are viable against armored targets. To call out just a couple specific buffs here, Thermite seems insane now. The railgun is back, baby, and the crossbow, hot damn, I gotta try out the crossbow now. And the community seems to be receiving this patch really well. Concurrent player counts on Steam have reached a peak of 68,000, a number that we haven't seen since June. Even the biggest content drop the game has ever received, which was in August, didn't reach this number. We only reached 62,000 back then. Again, just Steam numbers here. The game's also on PS5. And this patch, with no new content, just balance changes, has brought back more people. And of course, these numbers pale in comparison to launch numbers, but I think this data really shows that people just want to feel like they can have fun with a greater variety of loadouts. And I think this patch and this new mentality is positioning things well for when the devs release the Illuminate, the third faction. I think that's going to bring back a lot of people now. I've heard some whispers about October for that, but it's just theories. There are also some bug fixes, including fixing scopes and crosshairs. The biggest buff, though, that we get with this patch, we now get an emote wheel, meaning, yes, we can now bring multiple emotes with us onto the battlefield. Wonderful. Another neat thing, some desert planets will now only have the intense heat modifier active during the day. So during the night, either they're not going to have that modifier, or they might even swap to extreme cold. But overall, what do you folks think? Is it time to give Helldivers 2 another try? Then, in some Palworld news, Nintendo and the Pokémon Company are suing Palworld developer Pocket Pair, and not for the reasons everyone would have assumed. See, when Palworld released, everyone called it Pokemon with guns. The visual similarities were obvious, the pals looked like they would fit right into the world of Pokemon. But that's not what they're suing for, which would be copyright infringement. No, they're not suing for copyright infringement, they're suing for patent infringement. Multiple patent right infringements, in fact. And it felt like when Palworld released, everyone expected Nintendo to take legal action, but the fact that they did not do so immediately doesn't mean that they didn't have a case, or that they never would take legal action. They were just presumably building their case. And a lot of legal experts argued that it was a gray area whether they were infringing on Nintendo's copyright with their designs. It wouldn't be an open and shut case unless Nintendo can prove that Palworld or Pocket Pair explicitly copied assets. Because it's not inherently illegal to create designs that are trying to evoke the feeling of Pokemon. It is illegal to literally copy an existing Pokemon. For instance, recently Pokemon won a $15 million copyright lawsuit against an obvious Pokemon clone that literally stole Pikachu and even Ash. But again, that's copyright, and now they're not going after Palworld for copyright, but rather patent infringement. And patents are about gameplay mechanics that have been patented. And while Palworld is visually similar to Pokemon, it's a completely different kind of game. It's not at all trying to be a Pokemon game. So what patented gameplay mechanics are they infringing upon? We actually don't know. That info has not yet been made public. Maybe by the time this video is posted it will be. Probably not though. Because it seems even the Palworld devs haven't been told exactly. They had said, quote, "We are unaware of specific patent violations and will begin the appropriate legal proceedings." Now, if I had to guess, it may be about the Pokeball mechanics for catching monsters. There was a patent that Nintendo filed just a couple months ago in July that governed the mechanics of how this works from an in-game perspective, right? Like you put your thumbstick, it targets whatever. And they asked for an expedited, accelerated review process for their patent filing, and they were granted that patent in August. So was this done as a rush job so that they can then sue based on that patent? I don't know. To me, it feels like Nintendo wanted to sue Palworld. They spent months trying to build a case, couldn't get them on copyright infringement, or didn't feel they would have a decisive enough case there, so they decided to figure out a patent angle, and now they settled on something that they feel will stick in court. I don't think Nintendo waited all these months just to put forth an argument that's going to lose in court. We should also specify these are all Japanese companies and the lawsuit is happening in Japan, so any knowledge that we may have about US laws and court cases will not apply. And lastly, an update on Concord, aka the biggest AAA flop in video game history, which shut down about 2 weeks after its release. The game director is stepping down and moving into a support role in the studio. And honestly, good for him. If this was his decision, shows taking a degree of accountability. Former employees do seem to speak highly of him, that he's a good human and full of heart. Even if the best development decisions weren't made for the game, then outside of that, other employees at Firewalk are concerned about either layoffs or an entire studio shutdown. And this is all according to Kotaku. Currently, the team has been in limbo as they await Sony's decision on what to do with them, since they were supposed to be continuing to work on Concord as a live service, but that's clearly not happening anymore. Some employees are speculating that they may become a co-development studio for one of Sony's other projects. Now, as I've previously said, Concord's downfall seems like a story of studio meddling. At the end of the day, though, no matter how good the game ended up being, and the game was not a failure in every aspect, there was a lot of things the game did competently and even better than competently. But the hero shooter market is just way too oversaturated at this point, and between the out-of-touch price model and the unappealing visual design, Concord just wasn't a game that attracted people to even give it a try. Again, I hope the best for the devs. You know, you work in AAA, you spend half a decade of your life working on one project, hoping to get your name in the credits of a big AAA title to beef up your resume, and then the game flops and is just soul-crushing. And on that depressing note, we'll end this week's video. But do be sure to check out last week's video in which we discussed the leak of how much money Diablo 4 has made, including its shop sales. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my supporters. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to join Rhykkers Raiders for more gaming content.